Aloha, friends, and welcome back to this week's episode of the Embodied Healing Self. And I am here this week with the beautiful and very young-looking Maria Claps. She is known as the Hormone Coach. She is a health coach and the creator of the Thrive Over 35. She has spent the last maybe almost 10 years of her life dedicating herself to supporting women in midlife hormone health. And I'm super excited to share her with you today. Many of my listeners, as I posted this morning and last night that I would be interviewing you, were just kind of bombarding me with a ton of questions. So this is obviously a topic that many, many women have a deep interest in this period of our life. And I know that I do as well. So thank you so much for being with us today,
My
Maria.
pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I'm super excited. I know we tried to reach out to each other a couple of months ago, so I'm so happy that this is finally happening. In fact, I think you were in Italy at the time or just about to go to plan your retreat when I first reached out to you. So
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Cool. All right.
So I just want to invite you to share a little bit, just give the audience kind of a background on your mission and your why and how you invested your time and resources in deepening your knowledge in women's hormone health.
Sure. So when I was about 42, I started to feel the real shifts of hormone changes, and those hormone changes were called peri-menopause. I didn't really quite understand it at the time, but I got a quick education. It was a quick study. I visited a doctor in New York City who he just wasn't all that helpful. It was moderately helpful. I knew that there had to be something more to what I could do to be empowered around this time. And at that point, I decided I'm going back to school and I'm going to become my own best expert, which is what I did. I went back to school, studied with several mentors, and now, almost 10 years later, I was like, I love this so much, and there are so many women in my shoes that need help, that are not getting help from the conventional healthcare landscape. Not that I'm against that. I'm certainly not against regular, even conventional medicine, but it's not the be all end all for women that are going through like midlife hormonal changes. So that's my story in a very short nutshell.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And the listeners of my community, we talk about health in a very holistic, practical way, and also an integrative way. So many of the listeners, we have an understanding that we know that there's a time and a place for conventional, but also that there's this other possibility where we can integrate some holistic practices. And so this is a great platform to welcome your conversation. So I'm really happy to have you here. I want to just ask, at the time of 42, what symptoms were you experiencing? Because I know that there are women here right now that are listening that are starting to maybe experience some uncomfortableness with perimenopause or even menopause.
Yeah, so it was like insomnia, it was weight gain, it was mood issues. Those were my things.
And what would you say through 10 years of training, and I'd like to invite you to share a little bit more about some of the mentors you trained with and why, but what would you say as a result of the last 10 years of your training is your mission moving forward with the women you work with?
So it's really just to empower women around the perimenopause to menopause journey, which, it's just so I can make it concrete and put like numbers on it. Just realize it, for some women, it could possibly start in the late 30s, although that's a little bit on the young side. But, it's about that journey from about 40 to 50. Or
Yeah.
39 to 51, if I want to be a little bit more specific. But we'll just say it's that decade of the 40s that can be really challenging for women, because they are really moving towards menopause in a it's sort of like, we know that menopause, the average age for Western women is 51. So in your 40s, you're kind of close to that.
Yeah, that's me. I'm 42, and I am stepping foot on the journey as we speak.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. So you invested time and resources to learn from some mentors, which we discussed before this call. Many people may not have heard of before because they are more into the science of menopause. Can you tell me just a little bit more about some of the training that you did?
Sure. Well, I started out at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, which
Me too.
I really very quickly realized that was pretty rudimentary and I needed to go a lot deeper. So after that, I actually studied in a program called on hormones with Dr. Sarah Gottfried for practitioners. Like the ink on the certificate from IIN wasn't even dry, and I was enrolling with Dr. Sarah Gottfried. She's written several really great books, The Hormone Cure, Younger, things like that. I don't think she offers the program anymore. So that was great. And then after that, I did the functional diagnostic nutrition program, and that was really like, that was, I would say, I credit the majority of my knowledge and understanding to that program. It far superseded any of the programs that I did previously. So here we are now, like about 3 major programs in, and I'm like, oh, this is great. Of course, I'm starting to work with women because nobody gets experience if you don't have kind of clinical in the trenches time. But I knew that I needed to go a little bit deeper, and I was like done with programs, so I sought out mentors. One of those mentors was Dr. Lindsay Berkson. She's been really, I would almost call her like the grandma of functional medicine. She's in her early 70s and she's been practicing for like 40 years. So I mentored with her for about a year. And now I'm actually mentoring with a naturopathic doctor in Oregon who does hormone balance for women, men, yeah, transgender. I mean, she does it all.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. And, I love many of the speakers on this show have really turned in whatever their challenge was in life or whatever their health, including myself. I had liver failure 14 years ago, which led me down the path of health coaching, have turned that experience into their gift, and that we always continue to be the student and the teacher, and that what we're here to learn, we're here to teach. And
Yes.
I just love witnessing other women empowered in that. So
Yeah.
it's just a beautiful thing to see. I want to ask for the audience. I know that probably most of your listeners and many of mine are familiar with functional medicine. They've definitely heard me talk about it before. You post a lot about it on your Instagram account, but there may be some people that don't really know what it is or why they should or could be interested in it. Can you tell me, you mentioned that functional nutrition and diagnostic program that you took was really life-changing for you. And I know I've trained in functional medicine as a health coach, and that was life-changing for me as well. Just learning that the, gut health is so important. And I know it's important in the work that you do too. Can you just share a little bit about what functional medicine is to you and why that approach is so helpful?
Sure. So functional medicine is like, the difference is, let's see, if you have periods that are flooding, right? You're 42 years old and your periods that are flooding, and you go to your doctor, and the doctor like wants to give you a pill to regulate the period, right? And versus you go to someone like myself where we ask, well, why is that happening?
Mm-hmm.
What can we do? And it doesn't like completely rule out the usage of medicine. It just doesn't put, like, it's not the first thing that functional medicine practitioners go to. We try to understand what's going on in the body and how to support the body nutritionally, because that's such a big lever, and also sometimes hormonally as well. So it's really just a matter of like instead of like a drug is going to be like covering up a symptom,
Right, like
not
a
gonna
Band-Aid.
and
Yeah.
sometimes we need that, right? Because no one should suffer. Or sometimes we need temporary reprieve from symptoms while we do work on the deeper root cause. But, functional medicine is going to be like trying to investigate really what's going on at the hormonal and cellular level in the body.
Yeah, I know that one comes up a lot around thyroid health.
Mhm.
that, where the type of testing that is done conventionally versus functional medicine. And I've seen that one where functional medicine testing can give us a lot more answers. And
Mhm.
so it's really more just of a root cause analysis rather than,
Right.
like you said, just treating the symptoms. So thank you for
Right.
that clarity. I think it just
Sure.
helps. Some people are new to functional medicine, and it depends on where you live too. I live in Florida. We have very few functional medicine practicing practitioners where I live. And I believe you're in New Jersey. Is that,
Mhm.
yeah, so you may have more than we do being closer to the city, but it's still pretty new. Where I'm in California, they're everywhere. So
Yeah.
it just gives people a little information to do some research on. So I want to transition right into diet and lifestyle and just spend a little bit of time talking about it as it relates to hormone health.
Okay.
Now, I know that many of my listeners, I've been a practicing health coach for 10 years. And so we talk a lot about diet and lifestyle and reducing stress and moderate exercise that's right for you, eating right for you. And of course, everybody has their own idea of what healthy habits look like. And what I want to ask you today, I know that there's a couple of things that I've learned from you, and I'm just going to share a couple of them and invite you to mention anything that I don't share and maybe just elaborate on them. But one of the things that I have learned from following you is how important protein, and you share specifically animal protein, becomes as we age. This is a big one for me. I've been pretty much mostly pescatarian since I was 14, and
Mhm.
I'm an O blood type, and it's something that I'm working with, I'm present with. And so I am really interested in what you have to say about this. And then also health, the carbohydrates and the effect on insulin. I know that you've shared some of that. Um, Caloric restriction, because what we see with women this age is, um, you know, peri or menopause symptoms might cause you to gain weight, which then makes women think that they have to cut down on their calories and work out harder, which is actually maybe not what we want to do.
Mhm.
And then also the importance of cruciferous vegetables. So protein, carbs, cruciferous vegetables. Let's just start there.
Okay, so protein is super important. Your muscles are like your wellness plan as you age. Being able to build muscle, and you can't build muscle without protein, can't build muscle without exercising. So what I find with a lot of midlife women, and particularly animal protein, is like, oh, it just sits in my stomach, or like, I just don't like it, I don't have a taste for it, you know. So yeah, I mean, it's possible that like you don't like steak or whatever, but like as a former like kind of meat avoider, not well, probably not totally vegetarian, but primarily, I tend to think that if you don't like steak, you haven't had it prepared right. You also, if it just sits in your stomach, that's very key to a digestive problem. It's not the meat, it's you. So stomach acid declines with age. And it's like animal protein is extremely nutrient dense. Like again, I'm not really putting down being, mostly plant-based, but you put kale next to a steak. We all love, like, kale is like the wonder child. There's no comparison. A steak is
Yeah.
actually a lot more nutritious than kale. So yeah, I'm like really a big fan of women getting enough protein. You can't overeat protein. It's very satiating. Um, and yeah, we need protein more than anything else. Yes, we need some carbs. Yes, we need some healthy fat. But I also feel like the like eat healthy fat, eat fat is been really misleading, and that's why I'm not against that statement. But the fat proponents, like one very well-known doctor who's wrote "Eat Fat, Get Thin." What they don't say is that yeah, you can eat we should eat healthy fat. You can't eat, just don't add fat to your standard American diet or your high carbohydrate diet. That's a recipe for weight gain. And too much fat in general is a recipe for weight gain. So it's really, I just
Mhm.
try to get women to think about eating protein.
Mhm.
And So yeah, super important. In terms of cruciferous vegetables, so that's going to be things like broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, mustard greens, arugula. Super helpful for fiber. Your gut loves that type of fiber. And then also those vegetables actually help you to create a really good type of estrogen called 2-hydroxy estrogen. So that's really, really important. They're anti-cancer because of that.
Okay, so that specific type of estrogen that you're talking about, can you tell me a little bit more about why that's important?
Sure. Well, because primarily because it's considered a gentle estrogen. So we have three main estrogens, right? Estrogen is a bit of a misnomer. There's no such thing as estrogen. It's estrone, estradiol, and estriol. Those are our three main estrogens. Then estradiol and estrone have breakdown products or metabolites. All right. So we have actually probably up to about 60 different estrogens in the body. And so the breakdown products of estrone and estradiol can either be protective or proliferative. Now we all know that proliferation is associated with cancer. Estrogen is not associated with cancer. Proliferation is associated with cancer. Proliferation of estrogen can be associated with cancer. So depending on what type of breakdown products you make, whether you make the 2 series, the 4 series, the 16 series, you're going to either be making protective estrogen or proliferative estrogen. Those vegetables that I just mentioned, they help you create the protective type of estrogen breakdown products. That's really the key reason why they're important.
And so at the end of this call, for the listeners, I'm going to ask you to share your daily kind of health routine, which I know includes a supplement with Cruciferous, or I know that you have taken one before. So and also something for stomach acid as well. So just for the listeners, I'll ask you to share that at the end, because, you know, sometimes like I put cauliflower in my smoothie and you can't taste it, but still sometimes it's hard to get, you know, as much as we need every day, and supplements
I
can be
really
nice.
actually, you know, for my clients, and I'll just tell this for your clients as well. So in terms of the protein and the vegetables, like I like to say, start at breakfast. I actually have a breakfast that looks like lunch and dinner. It's usually a piece of salmon or turkey burger, and some low carb vegetables. And it's really makes me feel good, gives me a tremendous amount of energy. So yeah, you've got to kind of start at meal 1. Otherwise you may end up in the day, at the end of the day, with a protein deficit, with like a healthy vegetable deficit.
Yeah, I love that. And I know I've done that before as well. And when I do, I feel much better as well. Like if I'm actually eating dinner for breakfast, I still have a 13-year-old and 11-year-old. So then I'm, you know, I kind of have to just walk that balance of, I can't, I don't like to hear, like, I get told often I'm one of those like weird, healthy yoga moms, you know, with my 13-year-old.
Just embrace it.
Oh, I totally am. Yeah, but it's fun. So, and what is your sort of take on caloric restriction that we can often see show up with women as a choice? Like, I don't want to dive too much into like intermittent fasting or anything, but just overall, what happens with women is if they start this weight gain, then they start working out harder and eating less. Can you share a little bit about, like, is that healthy? Is it not healthy?
Well, no, it's not necessarily healthy. Because because if they are like depleted in minerals, depleted in energy, not sleeping, and then they go to restrict calories, which could restrict nutrients, and exercise more, they're going to actually put themselves further into a state of depletion. So I'm not saying that like across the board it's bad advice. I mean, there might be some people that need, you know, if you're eating 2,500 calories a day, that's probably too much. And if you're not exercising, you probably need to move more. So of course, you know, but I'm just saying in terms of general advice, it's not the right place to start.
Yeah, and this is why a functional medicine approach is so helpful, because again, it's based on the individual, based on where you are, your body
Mhm.
composition, your lifestyle, and all of that. So again, just kind of coming full circle to where we started the conversation, it's really helpful to have somebody who is trained and knowledgeable in this type of nutrition for our individual bodies. I want to ask you to share a little bit about like what actually happens. You mentioned the word depletion. What's happening to women as we approach our 40s? Like, what are the changes that start to happen, and how do these changes in our estrogen affect our immune system and create, do they lead to more autoimmunity? Because we do see this, we see a lot, or I see a lot of thyroid dysfunction. Like what's happening?
So typically starting in the 40s, the hormones are going to drop. So progesterone is going to drop. And once it drops, it never comes back. It's low forever. That's because ovulation kind of stops and starts. So progesterone is made when we ovulate. Ovulation from 40 to 50. And I have to tell you a funny story, as I typically notice, and again, owing to bioindividuality, 42 to 43 I've seen with hundreds of women are pretty major hormonal changes. But from 40 to 50, yeah, I know.
Right where I'm at.
Yeah, at 40 to 50, we're going to see progesterone drop. We're going to see estrogen can fluctuate, but it's fluctuating at a lower level than it was in the 30s. So, there's a lot of talk about estrogen dominance. Yeah, that's true, but it's also you're on your way out with estrogen as well. So that, those hormonal rhythms, they affect everything in the body from mood to weight and fat distribution, to libido, to even gut health, right? Because everyone thinks like, oh, it's gut health is like super important, but estrogen actually even helps to keep your gut healthy. So an aging gut can be a damaged gut just on aging alone, because with aging we lose hormones. So those are the things that happen, and they have like far-reaching implications in the body. Every single organ system is affected by loss of hormones.
Mm-hmm. And so you do two types of tests when you onboard somebody or when you start to work with somebody. The GI map, I believe it's called, and then the Dutch test. And and the Dutch, I think you do urine and blood. I'm going to invite you to share a little bit.
It's just, so the Dutch, I do the Dutch complete test. It's just a urine
Okay.
test. Yep. I do actually do comprehensive blood work as well, because typically when people go to for their annual physical, they get something called a comprehensive metabolic panel and a CBC. It's very basic. It's really just looking at the health of the liver and the kidneys and then the red and white blood cells. It's a decent test, but it's not thorough. It's not comprehensive. I'm doing a really comprehensive blood work plus the Dutch test, which is a hormone test for a few nutrients and a few other markers. And then we do the GI map, which looks at the health of the gut. So that really lets us see like what a woman's health is, and lets us look deeper and really just create a plan that works for her: nutrition, hormone therapy, supplements, what type of exercise you should do. Intermittent fasting is all the rage. It can be helpful for a lot of women, but not for everyone. So we can actually see through this testing, we can cover all the lifestyle things.
So what would you say, just to give listeners why, if I'm listening and I want to learn a little bit about this, why would I want to be interested in this more comprehensive testing? What is it that you have seen the conventional annual exam is missing in that testing process?
So women, it's not necessarily just what the conventional annual exam is missing. It's really the response to women in terms of what they need. So women in this life stage are given the pill to regulate their period. Their period, again, is naturally going to go off kilter. You're either going to get them really close together, or you're going to get them further apart, or a mix of the two. Okay, at some point. It could be 42, 45, it could be 50, it could be 39, but like I said, 39 to 51, that period's going to kind of just get a little wonky. So women go to their doctor who like really don't understand what's happening in their body and like, oh, my period's all over the place. It's so annoying. Like I had, 2 periods in 1 month, or like I skipped like 3 months and I haven't had a period. So, well, we could put you on the pill because that will regulate it. You'll know when to expect. It'll be every 28 days. That is the worst, absolutely the worst thing. It will rob you of bone. It will rob you of knowing what's going on in your own body as you are inevitably moving towards menopause. It will rob you of your own hormones, which are safe, beneficial, and protective. So, or they go to the doctor and it's like, I'm kind of like depressed or I'm anxious and I've never really been this way before. Well, we could give you an antidepressant. Instead of saying, well, it's probably due to the fact that your progesterone has dropped, because progesterone is a calming, soothing hormone. So instead of like investigating, okay, lifestyle, hormones, how can we support you nutritionally, holistically, with perhaps bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, it's the pill for regulation of the period. It is, antidepressants. It's, your cholesterol is high, let's give you a statin or something. Instead, not realizing, again, these changes are intricately tied in with hormonal changes, and balancing and sometimes restoration of these lost hormones can completely make the need for those other medications disappear.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Such great information. I have a lot of questions around, okay, so we get this testing done. Maybe we decide to do more comprehensive testing because we want to have a deeper understanding of, what's happening in the body. And I just want to quickly ask, what does specifically the GI map test for? Is it testing for inflammation or sensitivities or bacterial?
It's looking at your bacterial populations. It's testing for parasites. It's looking at, there are several markers for pancreatic enzyme function. It's looking at the health of the immune system in the gut through a marker called secretory IgA. It's checking for pathogenic organisms, H. pylori, which is a very common stomach bacteria, yep. C. diff, a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and so I asked that question because are those things normally tested for in an annual exam?
No.
Right,
no.
Exactly. So I just kind of wanted the listeners to know that. I've talked a lot about the importance of gut health and nutrition as we're talking about. And so, but sometimes we take all the measures, we eat healthy for us, what we think we can do, and maybe there's an underlying pathogen we're not aware of. And so Correct. That's why these tests can be so helpful.
Yes.
And we know that stress can trigger underlying pathogens. And would you say that the change in our hormone fluctuations can trigger these sort of underlying pathogens during this time? Like we might notice something, things start to.
So what happens is lack of estrogen can make our gut less healthy, and we don't methylate as good when we are low in estrogen. But so there's also the hormone cortisol, which if it's too high can literally break down the lining of the gut, which can create sensitivities and also as we age, we decline in stomach acid. It's just, again, it's part of aging, some, more than others. And, without strong stomach acid, sorry, it says my internet connection is unstable. Hope that doesn't interfere. But without strong stomach acid, we can't, that wonderful B vitamin complex is not getting absorbed, that, the nutrients from your food are not getting absorbed. So yeah, that's pretty much what happens.
Yeah. So methylation is a whole nother topic, but it's an important part of our health and well-being. And it sounds like it becomes even more important during this stage of our life. Is what
it's important all the time.
Yeah.
It's important all the time. Yeah, it probably would be opening Pandora's box to speak
Yeah.
about it now.
But is that part of your testing process as well? Just testing for.
So on the Dutch test, which is the hormone test that I use, we can
Mhm.
see how a woman is methylating her estrogen, which is extremely important.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about um, what our options are once we do the testing. And so, I think there may be women who are currently using like a progesterone cream. I think that's something that somebody might go on the internet and read is something that
Yes.
you can do, right?
Common. Yeah.
So it's kind of a common thing. And then there's if we're doing the nutrition stuff and the lifestyle stuff to the best we can in this moment, but we need a little bit more support with hormone balance. But the first question I want to ask is, do you have knowledge or do you share any like herbal, in addition to nutrition, kind of like herbal support in any way that you have known that can help?
For what though? I mean, so like,
I guess to help utilize maybe the hormones that we do have. Is there anything available?
sure. I mean, I like adaptogens for
Yeah.
stress buffering for the adrenal glands. I'm actually not really a huge fan of herbs for that take the place of hormone therapy. I'm a big fan of hormone therapy for women. And don't ask me about like red clover and black cohosh, because you're not going to get nearly the protective benefits from those. You may get amelioration of hot flashes or with black cohosh, although not all studies show that. Yeah, so I like herbs, like I like milk thistle for liver health,
Yep.
and I like the adaptogenic herbs for adrenals, but not for taking the place of hormone therapy.
Yeah. So so I know that like in the community of women that were asking questions this morning, that was a big question. Like, are there alternatives to hormone therapy? And what I want to invite you to share.
I would
There's
say
many
why?
types.
Why do you want alternatives? I mean, so if you tell me that you're a cancer survivor, then you have a good reason for asking for alternatives. That's my question for those people saying alternatives. Why do you want an alternative? Are you afraid? Are you afraid of hormone therapy? Then we can have a discussion around that.
So this is the perfect segue into this discussion, because I think what it comes down to is people just don't know. They don't know.
Yeah.
Like you shared the different types of estrogen. That's probably the first time our listeners have probably heard this. I know it's fairly new to me. And we hear and we read that estrogen causes cancer, right? So I'm going to invite you to share a little bit around your belief in that. Because
estrogen does not cause cancer. Estrogen can bring an already present cancer to a quicker diagnosis, but estrogen does not cause cancer. There was a big study that was stopped in 2002 called the Women's Health Initiative, and it was really, really poorly run. They used women. I just probably should do a whole other podcast on this, but basically I'll just wrap it up and say that, the study drugs were estrogen and a type of progesterone that was synthetic. That was the drug that was implicated in the increase in cancer and the increases in deleterious effects on women. So it's really not the estrogen.
Yeah, so I think that's an important point you bring up, and this is what I want to go into next, is that there are many types of hormone therapy, and please add if I forget one, but bioidentical, synthetic, compounded, injections, pellets, and oral. Did I name them all, or?
Not 100%, but yeah,
okay,
but you could go ahead.
Most common.
Your question about that is?
So my question is, can you tell me a little bit about the pros and cons of each one? So you're a fan of bioidentical. So we'll save that one for last. And maybe we can just start with synthetic. Like some people don't know that there is actually two different, that there are different types. So can you just go into a little bit more about what is the difference between bioidentical and synthetic compounded injection?
Yeah. So just, yeah, we're going to have to keep this brief because this
Yeah.
is, this, again, we could do a whole podcast on this. Bioidentical comes from, and it's completely identical to the same hormones that your body makes. Okay. Synthetic is similar to what your body makes, but not identical. Okay. That's a huge difference. Now, one of the things that, those are the two top, like what we could work from: bioidentical, synthetic. You mentioned compounded, right? So just compounded hormones are made by a compounding pharmacist based on what your doctor thinks you should have. Okay, so that's compounded hormones. And then we have also hormones that are bioidentical but are not compounded. Okay, so listen, this is a big misunderstanding for women. You can actually get an FDA approved non-compounded hormone therapy that is bioidentical. Okay, so bioidentical is not synonymous with compound.
Yeah, okay. Well,
So, yeah,
okay, so it's not necessarily, bioidentical is not necessarily for the individual.
correct. Compounded is for the
right.
for
So
the
the
individual.
word bioindividuality, which is not necessarily bioidentical.
You're kind of confusing me now.
Yeah. So, but basically, what I hear you saying is compounded is for the individual, but not necessarily all bioidentical are compounded.
Correct. That's
right.
correct. Yes.
Okay. So there's two types of bioidentical: compounded and non-compounded. And there's two types of, you have that in synthetic as well.
So I think synthetic could probably compound it. Again, all compounded means it's made by a skilled pharmacist, and it's not like prepared from a big pharmaceutical firm that has already like specific amounts in it.
Yeah.
It's prepared by a very skilled pharmacist.
And so tell me a little bit about your thoughts, and I want to go a little deeper into bioidentical, but your thoughts on injections and pellets and oral, just in general.
So I'm not necessarily against injections. I am against pellets only because you can't really regulate you get a lot of hormone at insertion, and then it wears down, and if you don't like the effects, you can't regulate it. Once
right.
it's in.
Yeah. So how is that different than an injection though?
Injections just have a lesser amount.
Okay, so pellets are stronger.
Oh yeah.
And they would not be, well, obviously for the individual, and they're all synthetic, right? Not all injections and pellets. Oh, they're not.
Synthetic.
Okay,
no.
So you have bioidentical and synthetic in all categories. In pellets, injections.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's always that choice of bioidentical and synthetic. Can you tell me what you do with your clients, what you like, what you have found has worked in bioidentical?
Yeah, so that's going to probably just be a little bit too. I mean, I go into that with one-on-one clients. It's a really big discussion, and I feel like it would just be misleading. But one of the things I do is I educate them on what their options are. And the reason why, Jen, is because like when you go seek out a doctor, you're going to get their version of hormone therapy. And whether that's going to be static, physiologic, combined cyclic, I mean, it's a big, big discussion. It's got too many arms and legs and questions to go into here, but that's like my one-on-one work, because I feel like, some forms are better than others. It depends on what you want, depends on how much you want to spend, depends on whether you want to have a period or not. I mean, it's intense.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And again,
I educate you, and I actually also educate other health coaches, nutritionists, dietitians who need to like really know and understand this, because it's so incredibly important for women to have this knowledge. and not just to say, well, I'm going to go to my gynecologist and ask them, because their gynecologist, again, is either not going to know unless they're specially trained, or you're going to get their version of hormone therapy without knowing what other options are out there. I mean, there's so many options just within the bioidentical hormone therapy arena.
Yeah. So I think what we're learning here is, I'm thinking back to the questions I got from the women in my community this morning. Like, again, a holistic functional medicine approach. Like, it's not a one answer, quick fix works for everyone. And if you really want to feel better, then you got to invest the time and the interest into doing this for the quality of your life, just like you choose to do with nutrition. One of the questions I get asked a lot, and I'm sure you do too, and you've actually posted about it in your Instagram as well, is it covered, what the services you provide, let's just say, or this type of approach, is it covered by insurance?
So typically, no. Insurance is meant for, catastrophic care, and insurance, I would say insurance does what's good for insurance, not necessarily what's good for you, because then, I mean, if that's the case, they would pay for my services or your services, because we keep people healthier, in the long run, and we actually probably would save insurance money. But insurance is for stakeholders and people at the top and profit, not necessarily for the individual.
Yeah, so this is an invitation to really allow the listeners to be proactive in their wellness, right? Like, that's really what we're doing with diet, lifestyle, nutrition, reducing stress, and then again, this hormone therapy option, or whatever, figuring out what works best for you. So you did a post, and I just want to read through these questions and let me know if something else comes through as well. For the listeners, if you're more curious, if you're working with somebody, you're not quite sure if you're getting the right feedback right now, and you want to know what questions to ask if you do decide to work for somebody else. And so I'm just going to list a couple of those questions, and if anything else comes up, I'm going to invite you to add it. And we're not going to go into this, by the way, but people don't even know, like myself, that this is even a thing. Static versus rhythmic dosing, because you mentioned there's different types of dosing, which is why it's important to have an individual plan. How long it takes for results. I got this question this morning. Do you have an answer for that, or is it really based on the individual's health?
So how long it takes to get results, it depends on, like, what are we talking about? Are we talking about getting rid of hot flashes? Are we talking about improving mood? I mean, so getting rid of hot flashes could take a week or two. Improving mood could take 3 months. Getting your really everything dialed in could take anywhere from 3 months to a year.
Yeah. And my answer to that is always that health is priceless, because it's the quality of life. And so it's kind of like an invitation to shift the perception of, like, instead of trying to just, again, do a quick fix for what you're uncomfortable with right now, shifting your perception to, how can I create this lifestyle to where this just becomes my lifestyle, and it's no longer thinking of, like, how long is it going to last and what are the results? And it's less completely results based and more kind of the journey and the process to feeling better.
Although I understand women want to feel better, and
everybody does. And let's see, how to tell if your body is detoxing estrogen in a healthy way, and thyroid health as it relates to estrogen replacement. That's a big one, I know, with the women that I work with. Kind of just what their options are. We just talked about a bunch of those. Receptor competition, that is something I know that you've posted on. I just invite people to follow your Instagram, which is now at Maria C Wellness. Is that right?
Yeah.
Maria _C Wellness. And so, I just want to share that, because I want people to know that it's doable, but it's more complex than just going on the internet and self-prescribing.
And it's more complex than just using a little bit of progesterone cream, which can work initially, but it stops working for most women because of you need estrogen to make progesterone work. And so when a woman loses her estrogen receptors, that progesterone cream just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. So, and I think I just wanted to share enough information for people to know that we won't be able to give you all the answers today. And that just leads us into inviting you to share with ways that people can learn more, because you provide many different options and pathways depending
Mhm.
on where people are. So can you share more about that?
Absolutely. So, I mean, I do try to provide a lot of education on Instagram, so they can follow me there. It's at Maria_C_wellness. I'm sure you'll put a link, right?
Yes, I
And
will
then
put
for women
links.
that really want, great, great. So another super exciting thing I have coming up on October 3rd is the Women's Hormone Balance Wellness Retreat. So you can travel with me to Tuscany, and we'll spend a whole week explaining all of this. None of the answers will be dicey or evasive. I'll explain it all, educate you. You can do a Dutch test with me. We can do a Dutch test before you go, and we can go over your results in a one-on-one consult. So the Women's Hormone Balance Wellness Retreat, if you really want to dig in and get an education on this, you can work one-on-one with me. Yeah, or if you are in wellness, nutritionist, health coach, life coach, and you want to learn this for yourself and how to help your clients, I do have a program called Midlife Hormone Mastery, and it's a deep dive into all of these things: osteoporosis, vaginal health, how to interpret the Dutch test, um, cardiac health, really as relates to midlife women, because once those hormonal challenges happen in midlife, it's completely different than,
Mm.
than not, than when you didn't have those hormonal challenges. And, I teach like the unique strategy that you need to be healthy in midlife.
Mm. Yeah. So there are many different choices, and
Yeah.
you also have, I know, one or maybe more ebooks. You have the I think you have a Facebook community, and then you have the training for health and life coaches, and you have the one-on-one opportunity, and then you have this retreat. So it's kind
Yes.
of like, pick your pleasure,
Yes,
whatever
exactly.
works for you.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to share just a little bit about what your daily health routine looks like? Maybe supplements that are important to you, and the way that you choose to eat, things like
Sure.
that.
Yeah, so I try to eat low carb, high protein, not no carb, but just low carb, and that's because I'm postmenopausal, and when you're postmenopausal, you just don't need as many carbs. You just don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's because so when you're low estrogen, and I'm actually not low estrogen because I replaced, but for women that are moving towards menopause or menopausal and not replacing, you cannot handle carbohydrate anymore. You have disrupted insulin signaling. So it's really important. That's one of the reasons why women gain weight as they age, because they just keep eating the same way that they ate in their, say, 30s and early 40s. So I eat low carb, high protein. I do try to get, some of those cruciferous vegetables, like we said, every single day. I take my supplements as dictated by need. I don't take anything like ad infinitum without ever checking in with testing. Um, right now I'm taking some vitamin C. I am taking some adrenal support, some eleuthero, some ashwagandha in a product, some rhodiola, that's for adrenal support. Um, I'm taking some B1 because I did a test and realized I'm a little deficient in B1. I take a B complex. Um, I take some digestive enzymes as well, and I think that's really it right now.
Yeah.
So that was, I try to get some movement in every day. So nice long walk, about 45 minutes to an hour. I try to get morning sunshine. And about like 2 to maybe 3 times a week, I try to hit the gym and lift as heavy as I can, really heavy weights.
Mm.
And that's because lifting heavy is really good for muscle, and having muscle as you age, it's a wellness plan. It's your wellness insurance.
Hmm. Yes, thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I love, just hearing those nuggets of wisdom just for the listeners. It just helps to hear it again.
Yes,
And how often would you say testing is necessary? That question did come up this
annually.
morning. Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
And so someone who may choose to work with you, they may do an initial, 6-month program, and
Mhm.
then they would check in with you annually and do the testing. And I believe the kits are delivered to their home, right? So that they can take it to their lab, get the results, and then have them, and then share them
No,
with you.
so the Dutch test and the stool test, so the Dutch test and the GI map, they actually do in their own home and mail off. And then I give people a requisition for blood work, and then they just have to go to a lab corp for that.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's the
awesome.
only thing you have to leave the house for is the blood work. But the hormone test and the gut health test you do in your own home.
Yeah. So it doesn't really matter where you live. You can get the testing done, and then you will go over the results with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, Maria, it's been so wonderful having you on the show. I really appreciate. I mean, you're just such a wealth of knowledge, and yeah, there were so many different paths we could have gone down to
Oh.
share with people. But I think, what if there was just kind of one little wrap up nugget of wisdom that you'd like to leave the listeners with today, so that they can feel empowered to take a next step? What would that be?
Just realize that the changes that are happening in the body are normal. So the shifting hormones, are normal. The outcome, though, of those changes when we are, so like as women age, we're losing our sex hormones. I would like to say that the body stops producing those hormones, but our need for them doesn't stop. And those changes are not really optimal changes. And also when you think about it, women are living longer than any other time in history. And like 100 years ago, we didn't even have to be concerned about menopause because the average age of menopause is 51. Life expectancy, we actually died before we reached menopause. So now we have, it's wonderful. We're living longer. We're not necessarily living healthier. So taking control, nutrition, mindset, exercise, lifestyle, bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, should you choose to use it, which most women should. I'm very opinionated on that. That can do wonders for your quality of your life so that your lifespan and your health span can match.
Awesome. That was just perfect. Thank you. I think what it all comes down to for most of us is being able to enjoy our quality of life. And it's
Yes,
easier when we
exactly.
feel better. And
Yeah.
like you said, I loved how you said that the changes happen, but our need for the changes stays the same. And otherwise, we want to keep doing the things we're doing, but our body may not feel the same. So this is a
Exactly.
way that we can support our bodies to feeling
Yeah,
better. So
totally. Yeah.
yeah, thank you so much, Maria.
Yeah.
I am going to share. Can you just share really quickly your social media links? I will share them in the show notes, but just anything that you want to share.
Sure, sure. So my website is just mariaclaps.com, and it's CLAPS. So mariaclaps.com, and you can go get my guide to hormone testing. There are 4 ways to test hormones, and this is a very concise, like 2-page guide. It explains the the pros and cons of each method and the approximate price. And then again, just follow me on Instagram, and I'm sure you'll put that link up.
Yes, I will. Your Instagram is very informative. I've enjoyed
Yeah.
following it. So
Awesome.
thank you so much. Have a
Thank you.
wonderful day, and
Okay.
see you next time.
You too, Jen. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.